we're back to emotional child abuse.
Okay.
And it's actually the next day here for us.
Okay.
Okay. And I was going over the mommy dearest environment. You had the dad environment, the psychopath, and the mommy dearest. And again, talking to professionals, and I think I may have said this last time, but just as a review, my mother, I'm pretty sure, was a narcissist personality disorder. And one of the main characteristics of someone with that disorder is they're never wrong.
Right.
You know, I have never heard my mother, through her 88 years when she was alive, say, you know, I was wrong about something. You know, it was always, I was wrong about something.
Yeah.
I mean, she was very clear about that. I was breaking the rules. I was the bad person, but she was never wrong and never sorry for anything. And interestingly enough, I asked her, you know, Dad never says anything nice. And I'm much older when I said that to her. And her thought process was, oh, he's just a curmudgeon. You know, that was her way of excusing his behavior, I guess. He's just an old curmudgeon, you know, but he doesn't mean any of that, I guess is what she was implying.
Did he drink?
No.
Okay.
No. His father died an alcoholic, but no, he didn't drink. He smoked. It was interesting. When I was a young kid, I remember him smoking cigarettes, but then when all the information came out, you know, about cancer and smoking, he quit. Okay, so the thing I want to talk about now, oh, and then after the mommy dearest, there's always the third environment, and it's not the most important, but there's actually the mother-father environment, the combined environment. And the one I always heard most interesting on TV was I heard Ronald Reagan, President Reagan and Nancy Reagan, and I would hear their children talking about the Ronald and Nancy environment and how they were a unified team, and it was kind of like the kids against the parents. You know, I could never go and get relief from my father by going to my mother or vice versa. It was always sort of a unified front. You know, neither of them did anything wrong. It was always my fault. And so that was what I think is different about yours and mine. It sounds like you had relief from your mother of some sort.
Yeah, my mum was all loving.
Yeah.
That was a tremendous relief.
So your father environment, while it was very similar to mine, your mommy was different, and therefore the combined mommy-daddy environment was different than what I had. Because you could always escape the dad environment by going to the mother environment.
Yes.
But see, I couldn't do it. I had no escape.
Good God.
I was trapped.
Yeah, and I can't imagine what that must have been like. My escape was a bike ride. My escape was going to the theatre. Escapism is theatre, isn't it? But anyway, not here to talk about me.
But it is interesting,
It is.
to
There's a
compare.
correlation.
Yeah, big time. Now, I want to talk about, all right, I've told you about the things I've had problems with. So how did I get over those problems? How did I get past that? And that's what everybody wants to know, because like you're similar, you have the same problems. How do you get past it? How do you get it where you move from the most important role of victim to the most important role of survivor? You know, I was a victim for 40 years, and I let all that anger and childhood problems rule my life. But then when I stopped being angry and I stopped letting it rule my life, that's when I switched from victim to survivor. Now the pain and will always be there. You know, it's not like I'm free of any agony from all of that abuse, but at least it doesn't rule my life anymore.
Right.
So.
And when did the process begin?
Well, the process kind of began in high school, and I started having epiphanies. Now, just so people understand what I'm talking about when I talk about epiphany, according to the dictionary, it's like a sudden understanding. You know, it's not like when you're doing math and you're learning 4 + 4 = 8. It's almost sort of a moment of clarity. It's a clear understanding. It's not just learning, it's almost a religious kind of, you know, learning where you hear, and I talk about in a book where every time I had an epiphany, I hear the angels in the background. Ah.
Did your mood immediately lighten?
I don't know if my mood changed, but it was a huge step in the learning process. You know, it was not like book learning that got me. It was like, and let me give you an example of an epiphany that's cute. Okay, I talk about Pittsburgh and the steel mills spewing out the black smoke.
Yes, you did.
Yeah. Okay. And that picture still
symbolic.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. And it's still vivid in my mind. Well, Pittsburgh was the classic melting pot for the world because the Irish came, the Italians came, the Jews came, the Eastern Europeans came, and they all came to work in the steel mills.
Yeah.
And when they came to America or they came to Pittsburgh, they brought their religion with them. Mm-hmm. So Pittsburgh is covered with big, huge Gothic cathedrals. Yeah. There's the Roman Catholic Church cathedral, there's the Greek Orthodox Church cathedrals, and they're all over Pittsburgh.
A lot of money flowing into the area then, really, if the religions can build or aspire to these.
Well, it was funny though, you would see it would be a working class neighborhood where all the Irish lived. And they were living in row houses. I mean, they weren't poor tenement houses, but row houses. But then in the middle of the neighborhood was this huge, beautiful Gothic church.
Amazing.
You know?
Amazing.
And all the churches were built out of this beautiful black stone. You know, they were these big black monolith cathedrals with the big windows, the glass-colored windows. What are they called?
Stained glass windows.
Yeah, thank you. Stained glass windows, gorgeous, huge stained glass windows. And they were all the shiny, black, huge cathedrals. And that's what I grew up with in Pittsburgh. But all of a sudden, when I was about a senior in high school, the steel mills started closing down. And Pittsburgh had to start to reinvent itself. And it did as a convention center. But part of the deal was the mayor started requiring that all the churches be pressure washed. And
can I just cut you off?
Sure.
Can I just get a year from you for the audience's perspective and obviously the epoch?
Sure.
What kind of year are we talking here?
What kind of year?
Yeah, are we talking Reagan's presidency?
1973.
73. So that would have been the
Nixon,
end of
or
Nixon.
Yeah, Nixon,
Goodness me.
maybe,
Okay.
kinda.
Okay.
I think in.
Yeah, forgive me. I just wanted a context.
Yeah, sure, sure.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I remember driving around, and where there had been this big, beautiful black Gothic cathedral was now all of a sudden this bright, white, shining limestone, and it dawned on me, holy crap, you know, these things were black.
Yeah.
From the soot
sure.
that was being produced by the steel mills.
Yeah.
And I still remember the first time I saw one, because the church was about 2/3 clean, and so one of it was bright white limestone and a third of it was black, and I went, you're kidding me. Yeah. I grew up thinking that I didn't know where they quarried the black stone, you know, but...
It's like London after the Blitz. It was completely black.
Yeah.
And, you know, and now it's beautiful.
Yeah.
You know.
But I could still remember that first and seeing it and going, you're kidding me. I didn't know that wasn't black stone. But anyway, that was my first epiphany.
Again, another metaphor. Things are often hidden and we don't realize.
And when they get cleansed, pressure washed,
all
of a sudden you see the inside.
See the real deal. It's, you know. Do you think we have again, I'm going to
Sure.
I'll segue into something
Sure.
else. But do you ever think that we see 100% of people's true personalities?
No.
No.
I'm not even sure if I know what 100% of my true personality is. You know, so.
But there are different contexts that allow someone like relaxation. I'm perfectly relaxed with you. This is me. There's no airs and there's no embellishments or anything. You know, but it's interesting how what you've talked about so far is protection, and we still carry on that outside. We put up the
Sure.
the protection,
The veil
the
of
veil,
protection. Oh,
you know.
sure.
and
And everyone does that,
yeah,
in to some respect.
And do you think that is correlated with what you've been talking about, with the childhood experiences?
I definitely had a veil on, you know, that was disguising who I really was. I just didn't realize I had a veil on.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it's
easier being, I'm sure it's easier being now you.
well,
You know, the funny man.
the funny thing is, I feel like my personality has been pressure washed like all the churches.
And it's great.
Yeah.
And it's great, yeah.
But let me give you some other examples
Sure.
of.
I'm sorry, I interrupted.
Oh, please, anytime. I mean, because it's so interesting, the similarities. I want to give some more examples. I talked about childhood depression, how I suffered that, and everyone knows you're sad or you're not feeling good, but I want to give specific examples of how my behavior was so different than what it should have been or what would normally have been. And the first one I talk about is learning to laugh. As a child, I never laughed. And if you read, they say 10% of your laughter is genetic and 90% is learned from your parents. And most people don't realize it, but when you laugh, a lot of times it'll sound just like your father's laugh or your mother's laugh. But as a kid, I grew up with a psychopath who never laughed, who was angry. I saw people on TV doing it, but I never laughed. I knew when things were funny, but I just never, I never laughed because I had never heard it, never experienced it. You know, the mother that's making fun of the little kid, trying to make him laugh, never happened. So two very important things I remember. I think it was 1963, I'm 8 years old, and I'm going to go see It's a Mad, 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 Mad World with my grandmother at the movie theater.
Okay.
All right. It was supposedly the comedy of the century. And I can remember sitting in the movie theater next to my grandmother watching and thinking, yeah, that's funny, while the whole audience is just rip-roaring laughing, you know, out loud. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's funny. And my grandmother commented as we were walking home, she said to me, did you not think any of the movie was funny? And I said, well, why? She said, well, you didn't laugh at anything. And I knew I didn't know how to laugh, but I said, no, I thought the movie was funny. And she kind of let it go by because she didn't understand. But here's the story, and then you ask the question. Now I'm in 6th grade, so that's 1966 or something like that. I'm about 12 years old. And I don't know if they did it on your playground where you went to school, but they used to have the first one who laughs first loses game, where you'd walk up to someone else and you'd get to them nose to nose and you'd wrinkle your nose or you cross your eyes, and if the other person laughed, they lost.
We did.
Okay, everyone did that. Well, because I didn't know how to laugh, I was king at that game on the playground. But here's the ironic part, because I would go up and I didn't know how to laugh, so they would end up laughing, and the next kid would push them out of the way and go, here, let me try, and I had a long line of people, and they could never make me laugh because I didn't know how to laugh. And then about the 8th kid, I'm up there, and some kid in the background goes, "No wonder he's always winning. He doesn't know how to laugh. He never laughs." And then it all of a sudden dawned on me, Epiphany, now I had something that was different than the other kids. Now I was being separated, and I got to give this kid credit that he saw me, realized I never laughed. And so it wasn't fair. I was playing the game because I never laughed. And he recognized that in me, which I think is pretty amazing.
Laughter being an impulse, even a convulse.
Yeah.
I think what we're saying here is I find slapstick humour pointless, but I understand the humour of irony. Is that what you're saying here, as you're saying that it's got to be, was it a learned type of humour that eventually cracks the egg and made you laugh?
You want to know how I learned to laugh?
Yeah.
And it's odd to say it now, but I went out and bought some Bill Cosby records.
Really?
And back then,
Yeah.
he was the #1 comedian with all the comedy records.
Yeah.
And I would listen to the record, and I wouldn't listen to Bill Cosby. I would hear what he said and knew it was funny, but I specifically would listen to the audience. And I would try and pick out people that were laughing in the audience that I could pick out and hear, and then I would try to copy them. And I would try to laugh like them. So over a couple of years or two, I slowly taught myself how to laugh.
What age was this?
I'm 12 to 14, kind of.
12 to 14. So you went into the formative time at high school knowing how to laugh.
Well, we have a junior high school where I went to school,
Yeah.
grades 7, 8, and 9. So yes, by the time I got to 7th grade, maybe 8th grade, I had taught myself how to laugh. Where it almost felt natural. I mean, it was still somewhat forced because I hadn't practiced it enough. I didn't have the 12 years since a toddler laughing. I'd only had a year or two.
So when let's full disclosure here, I met you a year ago. Was it a year ago? It was June the 8th when I came back. It was June the 8th.
Okay.
We became friends, and the reason I go to the pool is because I laugh. And the reason I laugh is because you're there. So you've done a 180, haven't you? From not having a sense of humour to seeing a lot of things.
I had a sense of humor.
Okay.
I always could say funny stuff.
But you couldn't laugh at yourself.
Out loud.
Okay. But now, when did that epiphany happen that you were able to laugh at yourself out loud and other people?
You want to know? I think I was almost 40 years old, and I was sitting right here in this room with this big echo in here, and I was watching TV, and all of a sudden I was laughing out loud, and I heard myself laughing. And I had an epiphany right there going, I'm not forcing that. It was strange hearing myself laugh.
Yeah.
At 40.
Yeah. But it's strange how, you perceive yourself in one way, but when I first came back and I met you, it was always, there's Jeff the comedian. I got to say hey to Jeff the comedian. And I don't know how or why or wherefore, but that perception stuck.
I've always been kind of a comedian.
Yeah. The first time we did the swim and you bumped into the door. I thought you really bumped into the door.
Yeah.
But you hadn't.
No.
You were acting that.
Yeah.
And that was a tremendous moment because it was genuinely funny. The laughter comes from the real horrible moments like, who was it? So, one of the great farce writers, Brian Ricks, farce is the worst day of one's life. you know, where the farce is funny because of other people's.
Oh.
What do we call it? Schadenfreude.
Yeah, I'm not familiar.
Yeah,
with
we
that.
call it Schadenfreude because we laugh at other people's failures.
Oh,
you know. But in your
I
case,
never heard that word.
Schadenfreude. Yeah.
Sounds German.
No, Schadenfreude would be when the waiter spills the tray of beers.
Oh, okay.
That's Schadenfreude.
Okay.
And we all know.
Interesting. I like that
That's
word.
interesting. Yeah.
It's a funny
it is
sounding
German.
word.
Schadenfreude. Yes, it is a song about it. But it's strange that you've managed to create this great, almost. You've managed to do the 360 from being that kid to being that magnet. You lead the club. They love you. The staff.
Well, I also consider when I'm in swim workout, I also consider I in control of what we're swimming, but I can kind of consider my bigger job trying to make the other swimmers laugh so they don't,
There you go.
realize how
Yeah.
hard they're working
There you
while
go.
we're.
Okay, I'm going to cut to the chase. Have you got
Okay.
anything more to say on that particular
No.
section? Okay, I'm going to cut to the chase then. Right. What do you say to a kid who was you today? What do you say to a kid who is in that situation and remains in that situation today?
Okay, I do get to that, so this will be skipping ahead, but I've got what I used as the answer for me.
Please.
And I'll give it now. And I used an example as the Vietnam War. And I grew up from 63, which was 64, when Kennedy was sending advisors into Vietnam. I was 8 years old. Till I was a senior, the Vietnam War was raging in the background. Luckily, I turned 18 6 months after they canceled the draft. So I didn't have to go to Vietnam. But I remember a story, they were having trouble with soldiers in Vietnam being depressed. Right? And so what they were doing, and this was kind of revolutionary back in the 60s, they were giving the soldiers antidepressants, to fight the depression that they were. And that's what the abuse causes, is the depression, so that's what you want to get rid of. And their study found out that even though they were giving these soldiers antidepressant pills, they were still depressed. And I was thinking, well, duh, they're in the middle of the Vietnam War, killing soldiers, civilians. You're not, so I suggest anyone, the first thing you have to do to start your recovery is get out of the war zone. Extradite yourself out of the war zone. If you stay in the war zone, you're going to be continually bombarded. You got to get out of the war zone, separate yourself from that, and that's what I did. I separated myself from my family, and that's the only way, in my opinion, the healing can start. In my case, where the parents don't want to help or admit or contribute to your healing process, if you're in the war zone, get out. Taking all the antidepressants in the world, all the drugs aren't going to help you, all the alcohol, all the, marijuana is not going to help unless you're out of the war zone.
Like at 17, 18, 19?
Oh, my parents moved away in my senior year, and then I went to college after that, so I pretty much never went home again after that.
Yeah, same as me. Left home at 17, and really that was it.
But it took another 10 or 12 years of even being out of the war zone to get to the point where I recognized what was going on.
What credence would you give the statement, I have to stay with my family because it's my family?
And I've had that argument dozens of times.
Yeah.
And I tell people, if that's how you feel, you know, I can't argue with that. If that's how you feel, then by all means, that's what you do. That's not what worked for me. All I can tell is what worked for me.
Okay. Okay. And gradually then, over how many years, I know your age now, but how many years did it take you to get to this mental point? Post
20.
20 years.
Yeah.
20 years.
And I tell people, you know, if you're in the war zone for 10 years, it's going to take 10 years to recover. It's almost a one-to-one kind of process.
Yeah.
I was there for almost 20 years, and I'm just rounding kind of, and it was 20 years before I would say I was well along the road to recovery.
Would your siblings undermine you or support you?
Right now or ever, you mean? Oh,
In the past?
No, they still talk and sound exactly like my father does.
Okay.
And as I mentioned to you, you know, the inheritance, you know, I was cut out of the inheritance.
Okay.
My brother and sister split the inheritance and left me out.
How did that feel?
It felt bad, you know. And it was my brother who did it. His thought was, oh, well, you've hardly been back or haven't been back for 20 years. And then I thought, well, you know, do you not think I would have wanted to? And interestingly enough, I actually invited my parents down. They don't know that, but I invited my parents down and they wouldn't come. So I did make the effort, and I think my brother and sister are jealous.
Jealous of you?
Yeah, because neither of them have been able to hold down a job.
Right.
You know, for any length. I mean, my sister's been fired by every minimum wage employer she's had, and it's because she talks and sounds just like my father did. And she's still angry, and so did my brother. Last time I visited him, some of the things he said about his wife, I just couldn't believe almost.
Which thing is more important in life, talking or listening?
Oh, well, there's always listening.